And this particular visit was the quarterly maintenance. Now they come out every time you need them to, in between, but on this particular time, it was a scheduled visit. So here it is, October, and we're going from summer to fall, and pests and unwanted house guests look for nice, warm, homey locations to get out of the cold. So in preparation for that, we have preventive maintenance performed. We are avoiding infiltration. In our vehicles, we have the oil change and the spark plugs and wires replaced. Why? Because by doing so, that'll save us time and money. If not, we'll end up paying way more than what we wanted to pay. So we can always see that preventive maintenance helps. Lack of preventive maintenance causes you to do things that you don't want to do. So, the title of this message is Whose House Is This?
Oh, yeah.
And there's a posing question with this title that'll come later on. So the first thing we'll look at is the foundation of a house. A foundation keeps the house from settling, leaning, crumbling down, cracking, collapsing, etc. It's the system on which the home sits. So we'll take a look at Matthew chapter 7, verses 22 through 27. Many shall say to me in that day, Master, Master.
Yes.
Master, Master, have we not prophesied in your name and cast out demons in your name and done many mighty works in your name? And then I shall declare to them, I never knew you. Depart from me, you worker of lawlessness. Therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine and does them shall be like a wise man who built his house on the rock. And the rain came down, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat on that house, and it did not fall, for it was founded on the rock. And everyone who hears these words of mine and does not do them shall be like a foolish man who built his house on the sand. And the rain came down, and the floods came, and the winds blew, and they beat on that house, and it fell. And great was its fall. First thing we've got to do is make sure we're standing on truth. Do our actions line up with what the Master Yahshuah is speaking? In order for our foundation to be solid, we must be like the wise man who not only heard Yeshua's words, but he also does them. So once we become hearers and doers of the word, we become rooted and cemented with a strong foundation. So when the big bad wolf comes to try huff and puff and blow our house down, it withstands that foolishness. As we can see, it's something about verse 24 that it says, do them. So if I say, I don't have to do them, that it was nailed to the cross, and we use the grace and mercy, does that sound like my house is built on sand? Because I hear the word, but I do not do them. Does that make me a foolish man or a wise man? So when constructing or building your house, we see that the foundation is what everything else is built upon. It's what everything else rests upon. Everything rests on your foundation. So if the foundation is the Torah, and the Torah is our lifestyle, then our life rests upon the Torah. and everything else is built upon that, laying the foundation. 2 John chapter 1, verses 9 through 11. Everyone who is transgressing and not staying in the teaching of Messiah does not possess Elohim. The one who stays in the teaching of Messiah possesses both the Father and the Son. If anyone comes to you and does not bring this teaching, do not receive him into your house, nor greet him, for he who greets him shares in his wicked works. Verse 9. Transgressing and not staying in the teaching of Messiah. So what is the teaching of Messiah? The Torah. And see, it doesn't say that people don't know it. It says that everyone transgressing and not staying in the teaching of Messiah. So if our foundation is not solid, then we'll question what we know to be true. This is how people can leave this walk. Because their foundation was built on sand. The sower sows the seed, thorns grew up and choked it. And see, when people leave, they're trying to take you with them. And that's why our foundation must be set on the word of Yahshuah, which is the Torah. That way you can always match up what someone brings to you. Also, this is why you should have a fence put up to keep mess like that out and also guard what's inside. To protect what's inside and keep it safe. Now we've got our foundation laid. How many of you know that landscaping is a part of the house?
Absolutely.
For an example, if your yard doesn't look well because of bare spots, one thing a person will do is sow grass seed. Anybody ever seen a messed up yard? Didn't it affect the house? So this person sowed grass seed and watered it and watered it. Whatever we sow around our house comes up. Gossip, strife, pride. Definition of house. Bait. House dwelling. Dwelling, habitation. Shelter or abode of animals. And this is Brown Drivers Briggs, H1004. Human bodies, land of Ephraim, place, home, house as containing a family. Those belonging to the same household, families of descendants, inwards. And that's metaphorically. I wanted to show you a picture of the house. Hebrews chapter 3, verses 4 through 6. For every house is built by someone, but he who built all is Elohim. And Moshe indeed was trustworthy in all his house as a servant, for a witness of what would be spoken later. But Messiah, as son over his own house, whose house we are, if we hold fast to the boldness and the boasting of the expectation, firm to the end. Whose house is this? Who's remember when I was younger, we used to walk through the woods on this makeshift path that we created. And I never knew the actual name for these little things, but by the time we got to the end, we were covered in them. So they were prickly things that used to get on our clothes and stuff like that. So naturally, we called them hitchhikers. Don't know why, but they stuck. By the time we got to the end of the path, we were like, man, you got a whole bunch of hitchhikers on you. So, needless to say, hopping on, going wherever we were going, but they were unwanted guests. Matthew chapter 12, starting at verse 43. Now when the unclean spirit goes out of a man, he goes through dry places seeking rest and finds none. Then it says, I shall return to my house from which I came. And when it comes, it finds it empty, swept, and decorated. Then it goes and takes with it 7 other spirits more wicked than itself. And they enter and dwell there. And the last of that man is worse than the first. So shall it be with this wicked generation. So pretty much an unclean spirit leaves one house in search of another. But notice this. Once the unclean spirit has lived with you, it has claimed you as being its house. I shall return to my house from which I came. Ain't that something? Without a person's consent, the house can have an unwanted house guest. Because we read it. And then after that, it brings 7 more spirits with itself. We can be hosting a party and don't even know it. Sometimes we don't even realize when we're living with the wrong roommate. We can't even tell you when it moved in. But sometimes the people on the outside looking in notice it. But nobody wants to be noticed. Nobody wants to be called out. So we keep that roommate longer than necessary. And a lot of times it's because of pride. Man, how can healing take place when pride is in the way? We can't get rid of it because pride tells us we don't even have it. Whatever it is. Pride will kill us and have us so messed up. Have you ever heard this? I like such and such, but I don't like his ways. I've heard that 100 times about some of my old friends. But we're not battling against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against authorities, against the world rulers of the darkness of this age, against spiritual matters and wickedness. Now, I don't know about you, but this is for me. I've been on the verge of coming to the house of Yahweh, bringing the wrong roommate. Because something happened earlier, I'm feeling a certain kind of way. And I know it. I recognize it. So like I said, I've been on the verge. But because I knew it, I started praying to get that spirit out of me.
Hallelujah.
So I can, number 1, enjoy my Sabbath. And number 2, I don't want to get here and act like I don't want to give praise. I don't want to worship. And I don't want to give thanks in the place of thanksgiving. That's a dangerous place to be. So how about this? Check this out. I get here and I tell my right-hand man, I don't feel it today. I mean, I really ain't feeling it. And I'm only here because we supposed to gather on the Shabbat. Other than that, I'll be at the crib. That's serious. My right-hand man look at me and say, I feel you. It be like that sometimes. So let's flip that. About Yahweh, look at his right hand. Man, you know what? I ain't feeling it. Yesterday was rough. I had to mess with old buddy all day. Every time I turned around, he had something going on. I ain't feeling it today. Right hand man look at him and say, I feel it. It be like that sometimes. Boy, we'll be in trouble that day, wouldn't we?
Yes, we will. Yes,
We'll be
we
in
will.
trouble that day.
You better know it.
So I'm just saying, man. You may need to take a look at that. But who's your roommate? Does anyone live here? I got something going on. Okay. Revelations chapter 3, verse 20. Sorry. Revelation chapter 3, verse 20. See, I stand at the door and knock. If anyone hears my voice and opens the door, I shall come into him and dine with him, and he with me. So there's this one bedroom house. There isn't a for sale sign up. Excuse me, there isn't a for rent sign up, but a for sale sign. There's a knock at the door. That was the knock at the door. The house he came to was already paid for. And he paid it with the blood. And even though an unclean spirit comes and brings 7 with it to make a total of 8, Yahshuah brings 9. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, trustworthiness, gentleness, self-control.
Yes.
The fruits of the Spirit.
That's right.
Hallelujah. And so we have right here Yahshuah talking. He's talking to the emissaries. Excuse me, he's talking to Yahweh concerning the emissaries. And he says, I do not pray for these alone, but also for those believing in me through their word, so that they all might be one, as you, Father, are in me, and I in you, so that they too might be one in us, so that the world might believe that you have sent me. And the esteem which you gave me, I have given them, so that they might be one as we are one. I in them, and you in me, so that they might be perfected into one, so that the world knows that you have sent me and have loved them as you have loved me. Father, I desire that those whom you have given me might be with me where I am, so that they see my esteem which you have given me, because you loved me before the foundation of the world. O righteous Father, indeed the world did not know you, but I knew you, and these knew that you sent me, and I have made your name known to them, and shall make it known, so that the love with which you loved me might be in them, and I in them. It sounds like Yahshuah really wants to be our roommate. See, whatever roommate we choose to have, we become one with it. Echad. And looking at this in believers in Messiah, we are connected and unified together as one. So if we're one, I don't hate on you when you're blessed.
That's right.
That's right.
If you're blessed, then I'm blessed.
That's right. That's right.
If you're good, then I'm good. Now, because we're one, don't let me fall, y'all.
That's right.
Don't let me pull you down.
Yes.
Yeah.
Before I dig myself a hole and fall in it, please, somebody talk some sense into me.
Hallelujah.
1 John 3 and 4. 3:24. And the one guarding his commands stays in him, and he in him. And by this we know that he stays in us by the Spirit which he gave us, guarding, keeping his commands. The obedience determines the relationship. How can two walk together except they be in agreement?
That's right.
Therefore, for me to keep my roommate, we must be on the same page. 1 John 4 and 15. Whoever confesses that Yahshuah is the son of Elohim, Elohim stays in him, and he in Elohim. See, you can tell who my roommate is based off of who or how I act. Romans chapter 8, verses 10 and 11. And if Messiah is in you, the body is truly dead on account of sin, but the spirit is life on account of righteousness. And if the spirit of him who raised Yahshuah from the dead dwells in you, he who raised Messiah from the dead shall also give life to your mortal bodies through his spirit dwelling in you. This is the roommate that we have. Because the Messiah lives in us through his spirit, we never die. The same spirit that raised Yahshuah, that same breath that gave Adam life, is that same spirit that raised the second Adam. This is the same spirit that is given to us once we allow Yahshuah to move in. So who's your roommate? And see, we don't automatically have Yahshuah as our roommate, because if we did, he wouldn't have to stand at the door and knock.
Come on.
He'd already be there.
That's right.
Makes sense.
And because we didn't always have him, some of us went longer than others with a different roommate. But someone also introduced us to him, or introduced him to us. Now, this might not have been nobody else, but this was me. Based off of how I was acting, it was visible that I had the wrong roommate. Nobody had to talk to me. They could see it. Mark chapter 9, starting at verse 17. And one of the crowd answering said, Teacher, I brought you my son who has a dumb spirit. And wherever he seizes him, he throws him down. And he foams at the mouth and gnashes his teeth and wastes away. And I spoke to your taught ones that they should cast him out, but they were not able. See, this father recognized his son had the wrong roommate. So what he's doing is introducing his son to the right roommate. And he asked his father, skipping down to verse 21. And he asked his father, how long, this is Yahshuah speaking, how long has he been like this? And he said, from childhood. And often he has thrown him both into the fire and into the water to destroy him. But if it is at all possible for you, have compassion on us and help us. And Yahshuah said to him, if you are able to believe, all is possible to him who believes. And immediately the father of the child cried out and said with tears, I believe, Master, help my unbelief. And when Yahshuah saw that a crowd came running together, he rebuked the unclean spirit, saying to him, you deaf and dumb spirit, I order you, come out of him and never again enter into him. It's safe to say that because a person goes through different stages in life, that this son had this spirit for a while. Because it says from childhood, this means that he has passed that childhood stage. It doesn't matter how long you've been without him. Once you've come in contact with him, it's life-changing. Verse 25 says, and never again enter into him. Because Yahshuah knows that unclean spirits always revisits where they came from. This was a command for it to never return.
Hallelujah.
Man, hit the road, Jack. Don't you come back no more. Oh, man, Yahshuah. He knows exactly what we need.
That's right.
Yes. Thank you, Father.
Mark chapter 1, verses 21 through 26. And when they went into Capernaum, and immediately on the Sabbath, he went into the congregation and taught. And they were astonished at his teaching, for he was teaching them as possessing authority and not as the scribes. And there was a man in their congregation with an unclean spirit, and he cried out, saying, Ha! What have we to do with you, Yahshuah of Nazareth? Did you come to destroy us? I know who you are, the set-apart one of Elohim. And Yahshuah rebuked him, saying, Be silenced and come out of him. And throwing him into convulsions, the unclean spirit called out with a loud voice and came out of him. What day was this? And they were in the congregation, and lo and behold, an unclean spirit sitting up in them. See, we can bring the wrong roommate to the assembly, to the place of worship. And I'm willing to bet he wasn't in there praising, throwing his hands up, shouting, and all of this stuff. Whoever the person was that was being used was being robbed of their Shabbat. Being robbed of their Sabbath. We have got to be careful and look at what's going on with ourselves so that we don't bring the wrong roommate to the assembly. Because it can happen.
Oh, yeah.
1 Thessalonians chapter 5, 9 and 10. Because Elohim did not appoint us to wrath, but to obtain deliverance through our Master Yahshua Messiah, who died for us, so that we, whether awake or asleep, should live together with him. This is the goal. That's the goal, the Messiah and us living together. Anything else is just irrelevant. we've got to focus on this part. We must be careful because the homeless are always out looking for a house to come live in.
That's right.
The Under Armour commercial says, we must protect this house. And the last thing we want to do is be harboring a fugitive
That's right.
Thank you,
that's
Father.
running from the law. My natural sinful self with the wrong roommate. Man, I need to be chasing the law in a dead sprint, grab on to it, and hold on to it with everything I got.
That's right.
Because in the law, in the Torah, is where I find my perfect roommate.
There you go.
So I need to daily straighten up my house and put stuff where it belongs by studying and reading the scriptures daily. So I've been reading and studying some different things during the week, you know. And I had some different things pop up. And I just need a break. I just need a day to do something and refocus, to get myself together. The Sabbath. The Shabbat. Gather with like-minded people. Here's something that I can feed and meditate on and keep pushing. There's only enough room for one roommate.
That's right.
As for me and my house,
And he's greatly to be praised.
amen.